October 11th, 2025, 6:47 a.m., San Francisco. The notification sound on my phone wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the fact that it woke me up before my alarm. I reached for my iPhone on the nightstand, squinting at the bright screen in the dark bedroom. My wife Sarah was still asleep beside me, her breathing steady and calm. I wish I could say the same for myself after reading that first message. Urgent. Emergency board meeting. 8 a.m. Do not miss this. It was from Marcus, our lead investor. Marcus never used caps lock. Marcus never called emergency meetings. Marcus was the calm, calculated venture capitalist who'd seen every crisis imaginable in his 20 years of funding tech startups. If Marcus was panicking, something was catastrophically wrong. I sat up in bed, my heart already racing. My company, CloudBridge Solutions, was my entire life. 3 years of 16-hour days. 3 years of missed family dinners, canceled vacations, and nearly losing my marriage twice. But we'd made it. We were profitable. We had $2.5 million in annual recurring revenue. We had 43 employees across 3 offices. We had everything. Or so I thought 72 hours ago. I grabbed my laptop from the home office and opened it on the kitchen counter, not bothering with coffee yet. My hands were shaking as I typed in my password. The Bloomberg homepage loaded first, and that's when I saw it. The headline that would destroy everything I'd built. Trump announces 100% tariff on all critical software from China, effective immediately. My stomach dropped. Number. No, 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 no. I clicked the article with trembling fingers. The words blurred together as I speed read through the policy details. President Trump had signed an executive order at 11 p.m. the night before, October 10th, imposing a 100% tariff on any software, cloud services, or digital infrastructure products that utilized Chinese-manufactured components, Chinese cloud servers, or Chinese development resources. 100%. Double the price. Overnight. My entire business model was built on Chinese cloud infrastructure. Our competitive advantage, the reason we could undercut competitors by 40%, was because we used Alibaba Cloud and Huawei's enterprise servers. We passed those savings to our clients. That's how we'd grown so fast. That's how we'd signed contracts with 17 major corporations in the past year alone. I scrolled through my email inbox frantically. There were already 12 messages from clients. The timestamps showed they started coming in around midnight, just an hour after the announcement. Subject: Emergency. Contract review needed. Subject: Urgent. CloudBridge compliance question. Subject: Immediate response required. Tariff impact. My hands were actually shaking now as I opened the first email. It was from Jennifer Chen, the CTO of MedTech Innovations, our largest client. They accounted for $780,000 of our annual revenue. I'd been to her daughter's birthday party last month. We were more than business partners. We were friends. Alex, I'm sorry to send this at midnight, but our legal team has been up for the past hour reviewing the new tariff regulations. Based on our contract's compliance clause, we need immediate confirmation that CloudBridge can continue service without passing these tariff costs to us. If not, we'll need to explore alternative providers. I need your response by 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm really sorry. This isn't personal. Jen. Not personal. Right. I opened the second email. Then the third. Then the fourth. They all said the same thing in different words. Our clients were terrified of being hit with doubled costs. Our contracts had price lock clauses. We couldn't pass the tariff expenses to them. We would have to absorb them. Let me explain what that meant in real numbers. Our monthly infrastructure costs were approximately $180,000. With a 100% tariff, that would jump to $360,000. That was an additional $180,000 per month. Over $2 million per year. Our profit margin was barely 23%. This single policy change would make us deeply unprofitable overnight. I did the math on a notepad, my handwriting getting messier with each calculation. With our current revenue of $2.5 million annually and our existing operating costs of $1.9 million, we made about $600,000 in profit per year. Add $2.16 million in new tariff costs, and we'd be losing $1.56 million annually. We had $890,000 in the bank. We'd be bankrupt in 6 months, unless we switched providers. I immediately opened a new browser tab and started searching for American cloud infrastructure alternatives. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. I'd reviewed these options when we first started the company 3 years ago. Back then, they were 60 to 70% more expensive than Chinese providers. That's why we'd chosen Alibaba Cloud in the first place. I pulled up AWS's enterprise pricing calculator. My heart sank further with each specification I entered. For comparable server capacity, bandwidth, and storage to what we currently used, AWS would cost us approximately $295,000 per month. That was compared to our current $180,000. An additional $115,000 per month, or $1.38 million per year. So our options were, pay the tariff and lose $1.56 million per year, or switch to American infrastructure and lose $1.38 million per year. Either way, we were finished. I heard footsteps behind me. Sarah had woken up and come downstairs. She took one look at my face and knew something was catastrophically wrong. "Alex? What happened?" I couldn't speak at first. I just turned the laptop screen toward her, showing the Bloomberg headline. She read it silently, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to horror in about 10 seconds. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Your infrastructure is all Chinese." "Yeah." My voice sounded hollow, disconnected. "The tariff is 100%, Sarah." 100%. She sat down heavily in the chair next to me. Sarah was a corporate lawyer. She understood business. She understood contracts and liability and financial exposure. I watched her mind work through the same calculations I'd just done. "Can you switch providers?" she asked quietly. "Not without bleeding money until we die. American infrastructure costs 70% more. We'd still be losing over $1 million a year. Can you raise prices?" "Our contracts have price lock clauses for 18 to 24 months. We can't change them without client approval, and no client will approve a 40 to 70% price increase." "Can you break the contracts?" "Penalty clauses. We'd owe approximately $2 million in early termination fees across all contracts." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "How long until you run out of money?" 6 months, maybe 7 if we lay off half the staff immediately. Her eyes filled with tears. "Alex, your employees have families, mortgages, kids in college." "I know." My voice cracked. "I know, Sarah." "Do you think I don't know that?" I looked at the clock. 7:23 a.m. The emergency board meeting was in 37 minutes. I needed to shower, get dressed, and somehow figure out how to tell 5 investors that their $3 million in funding was about to evaporate because of a trade policy announced while we were sleeping. My phone buzzed again. Another email. This one from David Park, our CFO. The subject line made my blood run cold. 2 clients have already sent termination notices. Contract compliance violations. I opened it with shaking hands. Alex, Medcore Systems and TechFlow Analytics have both sent formal termination notices citing the force majeure clause in their contracts. They're claiming the tariff represents an unforeseeable government action that fundamentally alters our service delivery costs. Their legal teams are arguing they're not obligated to continue contracts that would result in cost increases. This could start a domino effect with other clients. We need to talk before the board meeting. David Medcore was $340,000 in annual revenue. TechFlow was $190,000. That was $530,000 gone. 21% of our total revenue. Evaporated in 6 hours. I stood up from the kitchen counter so fast the chair fell backward with a crash. Sarah jumped, startled. "I need to go," I said, my voice distant and mechanical. "I need to get to the office. I don't know what I need to do." I showered in a daze. The hot water ran over me, but I barely felt it. I kept thinking about my employees. Raj, our senior developer, had just bought a house. His wife was pregnant with their second child. Kim in sales had 3 kids in private school. Marcus in operations was supporting his elderly parents. What was I going to tell them? How was I going to explain that their jobs were disappearing because of a trade policy announced at 11 o'clock at night with no warning, no transition period, no consideration for the businesses that would be crushed in the process? I got dressed in the same suit I'd worn to our Series A funding celebration 16 months ago. It felt like a lifetime ago now. We'd raised $3 million. Marcus had given a toast about how CloudBridge was going to revolutionize enterprise cloud solutions. Everyone had believed him. I had believed him. I kissed Sarah goodbye. She held on to me longer than usual. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "we'll figure it out." We always do. I wanted to believe her. But as I drove through San Francisco's morning traffic toward our office in SOMA, all I could think about was the number. $2.5 million. That's what we'd built. That's what we were about to lose. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. More emails, more Slack messages, more panicked texts from employees who'd started seeing the news. I ignored them all and focused on driving, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The board meeting was in our main conference room. I arrived at 7:56 a.m. 4 of the 5 board members were already there, their faces grim. Marcus saw me walk in and gestured to the empty chair at the head of the table. "Alex, sit down. We need to talk about survival options." Survival options. That's what we were down to now. Not growth strategies or expansion plans or Series B funding rounds. Survival. I sat down and looked around the table. Marcus, who'd believed in me from day one. Patricia, who'd connected us with half our major clients. David Chen, who'd mentored me through every growth phase. And Rebecca, our only board member who'd actually been skeptical of our Chinese infrastructure strategy from the beginning. Rebecca spoke first. "I told you this was a risk 18 months ago. I specifically said we needed to diversify providers." "Rebecca," Marcus interrupted sharply, "now is not the time for 'I told you so.' We need solutions." "The solution is, there is no solution," she shot back. "The math doesn't work." I ran the numbers this morning. Every scenario ends with the company insolvent within 8 months. "There has to be something," Patricia said desperately. "We can restructure. We can renegotiate contracts. We can't do anything," I interrupted, my voice flat. "I've spent the last hour and a half running every possible scenario. We're losing over $1 million a year no matter what we do. Pay the tariff, we bleed out. Switch providers, we bleed out slower. Break contracts, we get sued into oblivion. There's no path forward." The room went silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming. I could hear someone's phone buzzing on the table. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "So what are you saying?" Marcus asked slowly. "You're saying we're done? 3 years of work, $3 million in investment, 43 employees, 17 major clients. We're just done." I met his eyes. "I'm saying that Trump's tariff policy destroyed our business model in 72 hours, and there's nothing we can do about it." David Chen leaned forward, his voice measured and calm. "Alex, I understand you're in shock. We all are. But we need to at least explore every option before we make any decisions. What about lobbying? What about joining with other affected companies to challenge the policy? What about the fact that this policy isn't going away?" I interrupted again, anger finally breaking through the numbness. You think Trump is going to reverse this? The man campaigned on getting tough with China. He's not backing down. And even if he did, even if by some miracle the policy got reversed next week, we've already lost 2 major clients. Others will follow. Our reputation is damaged. Our competitive advantage is gone. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. From this height, I could see the Bay Bridge, the Salesforce Tower, the whole city spread out below us. 3 years ago, I'd stood in this same spot after signing the lease on this office, feeling like I was on top of the world. Now I felt like I was falling off it. I started this company because I saw an opportunity, I said, still facing the window. Chinese cloud infrastructure was better and cheaper than American alternatives. I thought I was being smart. I thought I was being strategic. I thought I was giving our clients value while building something sustainable. I turned back to face the board. I was wrong. I built a house of cards on a foundation of international trade relationships that could change overnight. And they did change overnight. And now everything is collapsing. Marcus stood up and walked over to me, putting his hand on my shoulder. Alex, listen to me. I've been through company failures before. This isn't over yet. We have options. We have assets. We have debt, I interrupted quietly. We have 43 people who trusted me with their careers. We have clients who are going to sue us for breach of contract. We have investors who are going to lose everything they put into this company. That's what we have, Marcus. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, expecting another termination notice. Instead, it was a news alert from TechCrunch. Breaking. Trump tariff policy creates chaos in tech sector. Dozens of startups face immediate bankruptcy. I held up my phone to show the board. We're not alone. This is hitting everyone who made the same strategic decision we did. Everyone who trusted that international trade relationships would remain stable. Everyone who thought they were building sustainable businesses. Rebecca was reading something on her laptop. Her face had gone pale. Alex, you need to see this. Twitter is exploding. There's a hashtag trending. Hashtag tariff victims. Companies are going public with their collapse stories. Someone just posted that they're laying off their entire staff today. Another company announced immediate bankruptcy. This is going to be a bloodbath. I walked back to my seat and sat down heavily. The numbness was back, washing over me like a cold wave. This was really happening. This wasn't a nightmare I was going to wake up from. This was my new reality. We need to make some decisions, David Chen said quietly. First, how do we communicate this to employees? Second, how do we handle client contracts? Third, how do we manage the financial unwind? I looked at him, then at the others around the table. These were smart, experienced business people. They'd built and sold companies. They'd made millions. They'd seen market crashes and economic downturns and competitive threats. But none of them had ever seen anything like this. A single policy announcement that destroyed an entire business model overnight. No warning, no transition period, no consideration for the collateral damage. I'll talk to the employees, I said finally. It should come from me. I'll schedule an all-hands meeting for this afternoon. I'll be honest with them. I'll tell them we're evaluating options, but that layoffs are likely. How many? Patricia asked softly. I don't know yet. At least half. Maybe more. Maybe everyone. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maybe everyone. Maybe I'd have to walk into that conference room this afternoon and tell 43 people that their jobs were gone because of a trade policy none of us saw coming. Marcus was typing on his laptop. I'm putting together a list of contacts in Congress. We need to at least try to get exemptions or transition periods or something. There has to be someone who understands the impact this is having on American businesses. American businesses that were using Chinese infrastructure, Rebecca pointed out. Do you really think Congress is going to fight Trump to protect companies that outsource to China? That's political suicide. She's right, I said tiredly. No politician is going to defend us. We're the perfect villains for this story. American companies that chose Chinese providers over American ones. It doesn't matter that Chinese infrastructure was better and cheaper. It doesn't matter that we were trying to give our clients value. All that matters is the optics, and the optics are terrible. My phone buzzed yet again. This time it was a text from Raj, my senior developer. Alex, people are panicking. Everyone's seen the news. We need to hear from you, ASAP. What's happening to our jobs? I showed the text to the board. I need to address the team. Now. Before rumors and panic tear us apart. Marcus nodded. Do it. We'll continue strategizing here. But Alex, try to give them hope, even if you don't feel it yourself. I walked out of the conference room and toward the main office area. Through the glass walls, I could see the whole team gathered in clusters, phones out, voices low and urgent. They saw me coming and fell silent. 43 pairs of eyes turning toward me with the same question written on every face. What happens to us now? I didn't have a good answer for them. I didn't even have a bad answer that might provide some comfort. All I had was the truth, and the truth was going to devastate them. I reached the center of the office and cleared my throat. Everyone moved closer, forming a semicircle around me. I saw fear in their faces. I saw uncertainty. I saw the beginnings of understanding that their lives were about to change in terrible ways. I know you've all seen the news about Trump's tariff announcement, I began, my voice somehow steady despite the storm inside me. I know you're worried about what this means for CloudBridge and for your jobs. I'm going to be completely transparent with you because you deserve honesty. I paused, looking around at faces I'd worked with for years. People I'd hired personally. People I'd promised a future to. This tariff destroys our business model. Our entire competitive advantage was based on using Chinese cloud infrastructure that was significantly cheaper than American alternatives. That advantage is gone. Our costs are about to more than double, and we can't pass those costs to our clients because of contract clauses. I watched the realization spread across their faces like a wave. Kim in sales put her hand over her mouth. Raj closed his eyes. Marcus in operations just stared at me, his expression blank. What does this mean specifically? Someone called out. I think it was Jenny from marketing. It means, I said carefully, that we're evaluating all options. But the reality is, we're going to have to make significant cuts. We don't have a choice. The math doesn't work anymore. How significant? Raj asked quietly. I met his eyes. He knew. He'd already done the calculations in his head. He was one of the smartest people I'd ever worked with. He understood exactly how bad this was. Very significant, I said. I can't give you specific numbers yet because we're still working through scenarios with the board. But I won't lie to you. Some of you, maybe many of you, are going to lose your jobs. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear someone crying softly. I could hear someone swearing under their breath. I could hear my own heart breaking as I watched the hope drain out of their faces. This isn't fair, Kim said, her voice shaking with anger and tears. We didn't do anything wrong. We built something amazing. We worked our asses off for this company, and now we're losing everything because Trump signed something at 11 p.m. on a Thursday? You're right, I said quietly. It's not fair. None of this is fair. But fair doesn't matter anymore. This is the reality we're facing. When will we know? Someone asked. When will we know who's getting laid off? Soon. Probably within the next week. We're moving as fast as we can to evaluate every option and make the best decisions possible given the circumstances. What about severance? Asked Marcus. Will there be severance packages? I hesitated. I didn't want to make promises I couldn't keep. We're going to do everything we can to treat everyone fairly and provide as much support as possible. But I need to be honest. Our financial situation is extremely constrained. Whatever we do, it won't be enough. It will never be enough to make this okay. The meeting dissolved after that. People drifted back to their desks in shock, some already pulling up their LinkedIn profiles, some just staring blankly at their screens. I walked back to my office and closed the door, leaning against it as the weight of everything crashed over me. 72 hours. That's all it took to destroy 3 years of work. 72 hours from a policy announcement at 11 p.m. on October 10th to this moment right now, standing in my office, watching my company die in slow motion. My phone buzzed. Another email. Another client asking questions I couldn't answer. Another piece of my business crumbling away. I sat down at my desk and pulled up our financial spreadsheets one more time. Maybe I'd missed something. Maybe there was a scenario I hadn't considered. Maybe there was a way through this that didn't end in total collapse. I spent the next 2 hours running numbers, building models, testing scenarios. Every single one ended the same way. Bankruptcy, layoffs, failure. At 11:43 a.m., I got a call from our company attorney, Michael Rodriguez. He'd been reviewing our client contracts, looking for any possible way out of the price lock clauses. "Alex," he said, his voice grim, "I've been through every contract. There's no legal way to increase prices or pass through the tariff costs without client approval. And I think we both know none of them are going to approve 50 to 70% increases. So what are our options? Honestly, we fulfill the contracts at a massive loss until we run out of money, or we invoke force majeure and accept the breach of contract lawsuits that will follow. Either way, the company doesn't survive." I thanked him and hung up. Force majeure, an act of God, an unforeseeable circumstance that makes contract performance impossible. Except Trump's tariff wasn't an act of God. It was an act of government, which should have been foreseeable in our risk planning, which meant the force majeure defense probably wouldn't work, which meant we'd lose the lawsuits, which meant even more financial devastation. There was no way out. Every path led to the same destination, the end of CloudBridge Solutions. October 11th, 2025, 2:17 p.m., San Francisco. The previous section ended with me sitting at my desk, staring at financial spreadsheets that all told the same story. CloudBridge Solutions was dying, and there was nothing I could do to save it. But here's what I didn't know yet. The real nightmare was just beginning. By 2 p.m. that afternoon, we'd lost 4 more clients. Not just inquiries or concerns, actual termination notices citing the tariff situation as a material change in our service delivery capability. That brought our total losses to 6 clients and approximately $1.2 million in annual revenue. Nearly half our business. Gone in 8 hours. I was in my office with David Park, our CFO, when the 7th termination email arrived. It was from Global Tech Enterprises, our second largest client at $520,000 annually. David and I had spent 3 months negotiating that contract. I'd personally flown to their headquarters in Austin twice. I'd met their entire executive team. I thought we had a relationship built on trust. David read the email out loud, his voice getting quieter with each sentence. "Dear CloudBridge team, following yesterday's tariff announcement and our legal team's review of contractual obligations, Global Tech must immediately terminate our service agreement effective October 25, 2025. While we value our partnership, we cannot accept the cost uncertainty associated with your current infrastructure dependencies. We will expect full data migration support per contract terms. Regards, Michael Stevens, CTO." 2 weeks, I said numbly. They're giving us 2 weeks to migrate their entire infrastructure to a competitor. Which we're contractually obligated to do, David added. We have to help them leave us. We have to train their team on the new system. We have to make sure the transition is seamless. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. We were required by contract to assist in our own destruction. We had to smile and be professional while our clients fled like rats from a sinking ship. "How much do we have left?" I asked. In terms of revenue? David pulled up his laptop and did the calculation. With 7 clients gone, we're down to $1.3 million in annual recurring revenue. That's assuming no one else leaves. They're all going to leave, I said flatly. You know that, right? Every single one of them will terminate within the next week. Maybe not. Maybe some will stay if we can figure out a solution. David, there is no solution. We've been over this 100 times. The math doesn't work. It will never work again. My phone rang. It was Marcus. I put him on speaker. Alex, I need you back in the conference room. Now. We have a potential buyer. I looked at David. He looked as confused as I felt. A buyer? For what? For the company. Well, for the assets. A competitor wants to acquire our client contracts and our technology. They're offering $1.8 million. David and I practically ran to the conference room. The entire board was there, along with 2 people I didn't recognize, a man in an expensive suit and a woman with a leather briefcase who looked like she meant business. Marcus made the introductions. Alex, David, this is Robert Chen from TechFlow Dynamics and his attorney Sarah Goldman. They want to discuss an acquisition. Robert stood and shook my hand. His grip was firm, confident. He looked like someone who was having a very good day, which made sense because he was about to profit from my disaster. Alex, I'll get right to the point, Robert said, sitting back down. The tariff situation has created a unique opportunity. Companies like yours that relied on Chinese infrastructure are in trouble. Companies like mine that use exclusively American infrastructure are suddenly very competitive. Your clients need a new provider. I can be that provider. You want to buy our client contracts, I said slowly. I want to buy your entire operation, your technology, your contracts, your employee roster, everything. We'll rebrand it as a TechFlow subsidiary, migrate everything to our American infrastructure, and your clients will barely notice the transition. What about our current infrastructure costs? David asked. The tariff obligations? Not my problem, Robert said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We'd be purchasing assets, not liabilities. You'd still be responsible for winding down your Chinese infrastructure relationships and paying any outstanding obligations. I felt my jaw clench. So you want to buy everything valuable and leave us holding all the debt and obligations. That's business, Alex. I'm offering you $1.8 million for assets that will be worthless in 3 months when your company goes bankrupt. You should be thanking me. Sarah, his attorney, slid a document across the table. We need a decision by 5 p.m. today. The offer expires then. Given your situation, I'd suggest you consider it very carefully. I picked up the document and started reading. It was exactly as Robert described. A full asset purchase that would transfer all our clients, technology, and intellectual property to TechFlow Dynamics for $1.8 million. The employees would be offered positions with TechFlow at discretion. The existing infrastructure obligations would remain with CloudBridge. Our investors put in $3 million, I said, looking up at Marcus. This offer is $1.8 million. That's a 40% loss. It's better than a 100% loss, Rebecca said quietly. Which is what we're facing if we wait. Patricia was reading through the agreement. What about the employees? It says employment offers at TechFlow's discretion. That means they can hire whoever they want and leave the rest unemployed. Robert shrugged. We'll assess each employee individually. We're not a charity. We'll keep the good ones. The good ones, I repeated, anger finally breaking through the numbness. These are people with families. People who believed in this company. People who worked 80-hour weeks to make us successful. And you're going to assess them like used cars? Alex, Marcus said carefully, I understand you're upset. But this might be our only option to salvage anything from this situation. Salvage, I said. That's what we're doing now? Salvaging? I stood up and walked to the window again. From here, I could see the street below. People walking to lunch, completely unaware that my entire world was collapsing. I watched a woman laughing on her phone. I watched a man carrying coffee in a briefcase. Normal people having normal days while mine spiraled into chaos. "Can I speak with my board privately?" I asked without turning around. "Of course," Robert said smoothly. "We'll wait outside, but remember, 5 p.m., the offer expires." After they left, I turned back to face the board. "Tell me you're not seriously considering this." "Alex, we have to consider it," Marcus said. "In 48 hours, you've lost half your clients. In a week, you might lose all of them. This offer at least gets some money back to investors and might save some jobs." "It's a Vulture offer," I said angrily. "He's swooping in to feast on our corpse. He's offering 60 cents on the dollar for everything we built." "Better than 0 cents, Rebecca said, "which is what we'll get if we file bankruptcy." David was running numbers on his laptop. "If we accept this deal, pay off our outstanding obligations, and distribute what's left to investors, they'll get back about 55 to 60% of their investment. It's not good, but it's not total loss." "What about the employees?" I demanded. "What happens to the ones TechFlow doesn't want?" "They get laid off," Patricia said quietly. "The same thing that will happen anyway if we go bankrupt. At least this way, some of them might keep their jobs." I sat back down heavily. "So that's it? 3 years of work, and we're just going to sell to the first vulture who shows up with a low-ball offer?" "Do we have a choice?" Marcus asked. "Really, Alex, tell me, what's our alternative?" I didn't have an answer. The silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of someone's phone buzzing. "I need time to think," I said finally. "We have until 5 p.m., Rebecca reminded me. "That's less than 3 hours." "I know what time it is, Rebecca," I snapped. Then more quietly, "I'm sorry. I need to process this. This company was my life. I can't just sell it to a competitor in 3 hours because of a policy Trump announced last night." "You might have to," Marcus said gently. "Sometimes the only choice is the least bad option." I left the conference room and went back to my office. My hands were shaking again. I sat down and put my head in my hands, trying to breathe, trying to think clearly through the panic and anger and grief. There was a knock on my door. It was Raj, my senior developer. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded, and he closed the door behind him. He sat down across from me, and I saw the same exhaustion and fear in his face that I felt in my bones. "People are talking," he said. "Rumors are spreading. Someone saw the TechFlow executives in the conference room. Someone else overheard something about an acquisition. Alex, what's happening?" I wanted to lie to him. I wanted to tell him everything was going to be okay. But I was so tired of pretending. "TechFlow wants to buy our assets," I said. "Client contracts, technology, employees. They're offering $1.8 million. And you're considering it?" "I don't know what else to do, Raj. We've lost 7 clients in 1 day. We're hemorrhaging money. We're going to be bankrupt in months." "So you're just giving up?" There was anger in his voice now. "You're just surrendering to the first competitor who offers you a fraction of what this company is worth?" "It's not about giving up," I shot back. "It's about reality. The tariff destroyed our business model. There is no path forward. I've spent the last 12 hours running every possible scenario, and they all end the same way: bankruptcy and everyone losing their jobs. At least with TechFlow, some people might keep employment." "Some people," Raj repeated bitterly. "What about the rest of us? What about the people TechFlow decides aren't good enough? We just get thrown away." "Do you think I want this?" I asked, my voice rising. "Do you think I'm happy about any of this? I built this company from nothing. I hired every person here. I promised you all a future. And now I'm watching it all collapse because of a trade policy I had no control over." Raj was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My wife is pregnant. Did you know that? We just found out last week. We were going to tell people after the first trimester. And now I'm facing unemployment with a baby on the way because Trump decided to score political points against China. The anger drained out of me. I didn't know. Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. He laughed bitterly. I bought a house 6 months ago. Our first house. The mortgage payment is $4,200 a month. I can't afford that without this job, Alex. I can't afford to be unemployed right now. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I'm so sorry, Raj. If there was anything I could do, there is something you can do. You can fight. You can find another option. You can refuse to let this company die without exhausting every possibility. I have exhausted every possibility. There's nothing left. Raj stood up. Then I guess we're done here. He walked to the door, then turned back. You know what the worst part is? I believed in you. We all did. We believed you when you said we were building something that would last. We believed you when you said CloudBridge was going to change the industry, and now you're giving up after one day of bad news. He left before I could respond. I sat there in my office, his words echoing in my head. Was he right? Was I giving up too easily? Or was I being realistic about an impossible situation? My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my wife. How bad is it? I typed back. Worse than you can imagine. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. Come home tonight. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. I checked the time. 3:47 p.m. 73 minutes until Robert's offer expired. 73 minutes to decide the fate of my company, my employees, my investors' money. I pulled up the TechFlow acquisition agreement again and read through it carefully. The more I read, the worse it got. They wanted all our intellectual property, all our client relationships, all our proprietary technology. They were offering $1.8 million for assets that we'd valued at $4.5 million just 6 months ago during our Series A funding round. But what was the alternative? Hold out for a better offer that might never come? Watch our remaining clients flee one by one? Bleed money until we filed bankruptcy? There was another knock on my door. This time it was Marcus. We need to make a decision, he said, sitting down without being invited. The board is split. Patricia and David think we should take the deal. Rebecca thinks we should hold out for better terms. I'm honestly not sure. What do you think I should do? I asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I think you should do what's best for the most people. Not what's best for your ego, not what makes you feel like you fought hard enough, but what actually gives the most people the best chance at a decent outcome. And you think that's selling to TechFlow? I think it might be. I think holding out for a better deal that never materializes helps no one. I think going bankrupt helps no one. At least with TechFlow, we get some money back, some employees keep their jobs, and our clients get continuity of service. Some employees, I said. Not all. Maybe not even most. Some is better than none, Alex. I wanted to argue with him, but I was too tired, too overwhelmed, too broken by the last 24 hours of watching everything I'd built crumble away. What if I say no? I asked. What if I reject the offer and try to find another way? Then we support you, Marcus said. That's what boards do. But I need you to be honest with yourself about why you'd be saying no. Are you saying no because you genuinely believe there's a better option? Or are you saying no because you can't accept that your company is dying? I didn't answer. I couldn't answer. Because I didn't know anymore. My phone buzzed again. Another email. Another client asking about the tariff impact. Another crack in the foundation. Okay, I said finally. Call Robert. Tell him we'll take the meeting at 4:30 p.m. to discuss terms. I want to see if we can negotiate better employee protections. Marcus nodded and left. I sat alone in my office for another few minutes, trying to process what I was about to do. I was about to sell my company to a competitor for less than half its value. I was about to abandon the vision I'd been chasing for 3 years. I was about to fail. At 4:30 p.m., we reconvened in the conference room. Robert and his attorney were back, looking confident and relaxed. They knew they had us cornered. "So," Robert said, "have you reached a decision?" "We're willing to discuss terms," Marcus said carefully, "but we need certain provisions regarding employee retention and treatment." Robert smiled. "I'm listening." I took a breath. "We need a commitment that you'll offer positions to at least 70% of our current staff at equivalent or better compensation." "No," Robert said immediately. "We'll assess each employee individually and make offers as we see fit. That's non-negotiable." "Then we need better financial terms," Patricia said. 2.5 million instead of 1.8. "Also no. The offer is 1.8. Take it or leave it." "You're not giving us any room to negotiate," I said, anger creeping into my voice. "Because I don't have to," Robert replied calmly. "Alex, let's be honest here. Your company is circling the drain. Every hour you wait, you lose more clients. Every day you delay, your assets become worth less. My offer is fair given your circumstances. Actually, it's generous. But it expires in 26 minutes. And if you reject it, I walk away, and you get nothing." Sarah, his attorney, leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, my client is offering you a way out of an impossible situation. You can take it, get some money back to your investors, and potentially save some jobs. Or you can let pride get in the way and watch your company go bankrupt with nothing to show for 3 years of work. What's it going to be?" I looked around the table at my board members. Marcus was nodding slightly. Rebecca looked torn. Patricia had her head in her hands. David was staring at his laptop, probably running the numbers for the 100th time. "Can we have 10 minutes to discuss privately?" I asked. 10 minutes, Robert agreed. "But that's all." After they left again, I turned to the board. "Tell me honestly, is this our only option?" "I think it is," Marcus said heavily. "I hate it, but I think it is." "David, what do the numbers say?" David looked up from his laptop. "The numbers say we're losing approximately $200,000 per day in client terminations and infrastructure costs. The numbers say we have maybe 6 months of runway left, probably less. The numbers say this deal, as bad as it is better than bankruptcy." "Rebecca?" She sighed. "I think Robert is a vulture, and I hate giving him what he wants." "But Marcus and David are right. This might be our only realistic option." "Patricia?" "I think we owe it to the employees to at least try to save some jobs. Even if it means selling to TechFlow." I felt something inside me break. Some last piece of hope or pride or stubborn belief that I could still fix this. It shattered, and what was left was just empty acceptance. "Okay," I said quietly. "Let's do it." Marcus called Robert and Sarah back in. They sat down, already starting to smile because they could see in our faces that we'd capitulated. "We'll accept your offer," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. 1.8 million for full asset acquisition. But I want it in writing that you'll give fair consideration to all our employees." "Fair consideration, yes," Robert agreed. "We'll interview everyone and make offers to those who fit our needs." "When do you need this finalized?" Marcus asked. "We'll send final paperwork tomorrow morning. I want this closed by end of business Friday. That gives you 2 days to notify clients, prepare your team, and start the transition process." 2 days. 48 hours to dismantle everything I'd built over 3 years. Sarah slid a pre-signing agreement across the table. "This commits both parties to the deal in principle. Sign this now, and we'll have the full contract ready tomorrow." I looked at Marcus. He nodded. I picked up the pen, and for a moment, I couldn't make myself sign. My hand hovered over the signature line, shaking slightly. "Alex?" Robert prompted. "We need to move forward." I signed. My signature looked shaky and uncertain, which felt appropriate. Marcus signed as board chairman. It was done. Robert stood and shook my hand again. Pleasure doing business with you. We'll take good care of your clients. After they left, I sat back down heavily. The conference room suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too much like a tomb. What do we tell the employees? Patricia asked softly. The truth, I said. We're selling the company. TechFlow will be interviewing everyone. Some will get job offers, some won't. That's the reality. When do we tell them? David asked. I checked my phone. 5:17 p.m. Tomorrow morning, first thing. I'll schedule an all-hands for 9 a.m. Are you okay? Marcus asked me. I wanted to laugh. Was I okay? I'd just sold my company to a competitor for 60 cents on the dollar. I was about to tell my employees that their jobs were probably gone. I was about to admit to my investors that they'd lost 40% of their money. I was about to explain to my wife that 3 years of 16-hour days and missed family time had all been for nothing. No, I said. I'm not okay. But it doesn't matter anymore, does it? I left the office at 6 p.m. The main workspace was mostly empty. People had gone home early, probably to update their resumes and start job hunting. I couldn't blame them. The drive home was a blur. I barely remember the route. My mind was stuck on everything that had happened in the last 36 hours. The tariff announcement, the client terminations, the emergency board meeting, the Vulture offer, the signature on the acquisition agreement. Sarah was waiting for me when I got home. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. I stood there in our entryway, holding on to her, feeling like I might collapse if she let go. I sold the company, I said into her shoulder. TechFlow is buying it for $1.8 million. The investors will lose money. Most of the employees will lose their jobs. Everything I built is gone. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. We stood there for a long time. Eventually, she led me to the couch. She made me tea that I didn't drink. She tried to get me to eat something, but I couldn't. This isn't your fault, she said finally. You didn't do anything wrong. You built a successful company using the best infrastructure available at the time. You couldn't have predicted Trump would impose a 100% tariff overnight. That's the problem, though, I said dully. I should have predicted it. I should have diversified providers. I should have had contingency plans. I should have seen this coming. How could you have seen it coming? This is unprecedented. No one saw it coming. Rebecca did. She warned us 18 months ago that relying entirely on Chinese infrastructure was risky. I dismissed her concerns. I thought she was being paranoid. I thought the cost savings justified the risk. Sarah was quiet. She didn't have an answer for that because there wasn't one. I had made a calculated risk, and it had destroyed everything. My phone buzzed. It was 9:47 p.m. A news alert from Bloomberg. Tech industry faces extinction event as Trump tariff claims first major casualties. I opened the article. It was a list of companies that had either filed bankruptcy or announced massive layoffs in response to the tariff. CloudBridge wasn't mentioned yet. Our sale to TechFlow wouldn't be public until Friday. But we would be on that list soon enough. Another casualty of a trade war we hadn't signed up for. I scrolled through the comments section, which was a mistake. Half the comments were celebrating the tariff as necessary to protect American interests. The other half were mourning the loss of their jobs and businesses. Everyone was angry. Everyone was scared. Everyone was looking for someone to blame. Some blamed Trump. Some blamed China. Some blamed the companies themselves for not using American infrastructure in the first place. No one had answers. No one had solutions. We were all just casualties of economic policy decisions made by people who would never feel the consequences. I put my phone down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I would have to face my employees and tell them their jobs were probably gone. Tomorrow, I would have to start the process of dismantling everything I'd built. Tomorrow, I would have to accept that I had failed. But tonight, I just sat on my couch with my wife, trying to process the fact that my entire world had collapsed in less than 48 hours because of a policy announcement made at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. The American dream was supposed to be about building something, working hard, taking risks, creating value. I had done all of those things. And it hadn't mattered, because in the end, one man's signature on one executive order had destroyed years of work, millions of dollars of investment, and dozens of careers in 72 hours, and there was nothing any of us could have done to stop it. Part 3. The Funeral. October 12, 2025. 8:43 a.m. San Francisco. I didn't sleep. I'd spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what I was going to say to my employees at the 9 a.m. all-hands meeting. Every version I came up with sounded hollow, inadequate, like I was trying to put a bandage on a gunshot wound. Sarah had gotten up early to make me breakfast, but I couldn't eat. I just sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee that tasted like ash, watching the clock tick toward the moment when I'd have to look 43 people in the eye and tell them their professional lives were over. "You don't have to do this alone," Sarah said, sitting down across from me. "Maybe Marcus or David should deliver the news with you." "No," I said quietly. "This is my company. These are my people. I hired them. I made them promises. I owe them the truth directly from me, not filtered through the board." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Alex, you're being too hard on yourself. You didn't cause this. Trump's tariff exposed a vulnerability in my business model," I interrupted. "A vulnerability that Rebecca warned me about 18 months ago. A vulnerability I ignored because I was too focused on growth and profit margins to consider geopolitical risk. You couldn't have predicted this. I should have been prepared for it anyway." I arrived at the office at 8:47 a.m. The parking lot was already full. Everyone had come in early, waiting for the announcement they knew was coming. I could see them through the windows, gathered in small groups, phones out, faces grim. When I walked through the door, the conversation stopped. 43 pairs of eyes turned toward me, and the silence was deafening. I saw fear, anger, betrayal, resignation. I saw Kim from sales, who had 3 kids in private school. I saw Marcus from operations, who supported his elderly parents. I saw Jenny from marketing, who'd just gotten engaged last month. I saw Raj, standing alone by the windows, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Everyone, please gather in the main conference room," I said, my voice somehow steady despite the storm inside me. "We're starting the meeting now." They filed in slowly, taking seats at the long table or standing along the walls when the chairs ran out. David and Patricia from the board were there, sitting in the back. Marcus, the investor, was on video call from New York, his face pixelated and grim on the large screen. I stood at the head of the table and looked around the room one more time. These were good people, smart, talented, dedicated people who'd believed in CloudBridge, who'd worked 80-hour weeks, who'd sacrificed time with their families to build something they thought would last. And I was about to destroy their trust in about 3 minutes. "Thank you all for coming in early," I began. My voice sounded distant, mechanical. "I know the last 48 hours have been chaotic and frightening. I know rumors have been spreading, so I'm going to be completely direct with you about where we are and what happens next." I paused, took a breath. No one moved. No one spoke. As of 5 p.m. yesterday, CloudBridge Solutions entered into an asset acquisition agreement with TechFlow Dynamics. They are purchasing our client contracts, our technology, our intellectual property, and our employee roster for $1.8 million. The deal will close Friday afternoon. The room erupted. People shouting questions, voices overlapping, anger and panic and disbelief all crashing together in a wave of noise. "What does that mean for us?" someone yelled. "Are we all getting fired?" someone else shouted. Did you sell us out? I raised my hands, trying to restore order. Please, let me finish. I know you have questions. I'll answer all of them. The room gradually quieted, but the tension was electric, dangerous. TechFlow will be conducting interviews with all employees over the next 2 weeks, I continued. They will make employment offers to those who fit their organizational needs. Those offers will include comparable or better compensation. Those who don't receive offers will be laid off effective the closing date. How many? Raj asked, his voice cutting through the murmurs. How many of us are getting laid off? I met his eyes. I don't know. TechFlow wouldn't commit to a specific number. They said they'll assess each employee individually. That's not an answer, Raj said, standing up now. Give us a real answer, Alex. What percentage? Half? 2/3? More? I honestly don't know, Raj. You don't know, or you don't want to tell us? His voice was rising. Because I think you know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to cherry-pick the top performers and dump the rest of us. And you sold us out for $1.8 million. That's not fair, I started. Not fair, Raj exploded. You want to talk about fair? My wife is pregnant. I bought a house 6 months ago. I turned down 3 job offers last year because I believed in this company. And now you're telling me I might be unemployed because you made a business decision that prioritized investor returns over employee welfare. The alternative was bankruptcy, I shot back. The alternative was everyone losing their jobs with no possibility of retention. At least this way, some of us, Kim interrupted, her voice shaking. Not all of us. Some of us. You're playing God with people's lives, Alex. You get to decide who might keep their job and who gets thrown away. I'm not deciding anything. TechFlow is making those decisions. That's even worse. Marcus from operations stood up now, his face red with anger. You're abdicating responsibility. You're hiding behind TechFlow so you don't have to own the consequences of your decision. What decision would you have made? I demanded, my own anger finally breaking through. Tell me, Marcus. What would you have done differently? We lost half our clients in 48 hours. We were bleeding money. We had no viable path forward. Should I have just let the company collapse completely so we could all feel morally superior while standing in the unemployment line? You could have fought harder, Jenny said quietly from the back of the room. You could have looked for other buyers. You could have negotiated better terms. You could have tried. I did try. My voice cracked. I spent the last 48 hours trying everything. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I'm happy about selling my company to a competitor for 60 cents on the dollar? Then why did you do it? Raj asked, his voice quieter now, but no less angry. If you didn't want to, why did you sign? I couldn't answer, because the truth was complicated and painful and made me look like I'd failed. Which I had. I had failed. David stood up from the back of the room. Alex made the least bad decision in an impossible situation, he said, his CFO voice calm and rational. The numbers didn't work anymore. The tariff destroyed our business model. Selling to TechFlow was the only option that provided any possibility of employee retention and investor recovery. Investor recovery, Raj repeated bitterly. That's what this was really about, wasn't it? Protecting the rich people who put money into the company. The employees were just collateral damage. That's not true, Marcus the investor said from the video screen. We pushed for employee protection provisions. TechFlow wouldn't agree to mandatory retention, but they did commit to fair consideration for everyone. Fair consideration? Kim laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's corporate speak for, we'll hire who we want and screw everyone else. The meeting was spiraling out of control. I could feel the anger and fear feeding on itself, growing stronger with each exchange. These were my people, and they were looking at me like I was a traitor. Maybe I was. Listen, I said, trying to find words that might help, knowing there probably weren't any. I understand you're angry. I understand you feel betrayed. If I could go back and make different decisions, I would. If I could have predicted Trump's tariff, I would have diversified our infrastructure 18 months ago. If I could have found a better buyer, I would have. But I can't change any of that now. All I can do is be honest with you about what's happening. So be honest, Raj said. Tell us the truth. Do you think we're all getting fired? I looked around the room, at their faces, full of fear and anger and desperate hope that I'd tell them everything was going to be okay. I think, I said slowly, that TechFlow will probably hire about 20 to 25 of you, the top performers, the ones with skills they need, the rest. I trailed off. The rest get laid off, Jenny finished for me. With what kind of severance? David answered that one. 2 weeks of pay for every year of employment, plus continuation of health benefits for 3 months. The room erupted again. 2 weeks per year was barely anything. Most people had only been with the company for 2 or 3 years. That was a month or two of pay, and then nothing. That's it? Someone shouted. That's all we get after everything we've sacrificed. It's all the company can afford, David said grimly. Our financial situation is critical. We're providing what we legally can. I watched my team fall apart in front of me. Some people were crying, some were swearing. Some just sat there in stunned silence, staring at nothing. This was my fault. All of it. I'd built a company on a foundation that couldn't withstand political risk. I'd ignored warnings. I'd prioritized growth over stability. And now 43 people were paying the price for my mistakes. What about you? It was Patricia from marketing, one of our longest tenured employees. What happens to you, Alex? Do you get a golden parachute while we all get laid off? No, I said. I'm not part of the TechFlow deal. My employment ends when the sale closes on Friday. But you still get paid, right? She pressed. You still walk away with something? I have equity in the company. After we pay off our obligations and distribute remaining funds to investors, I'll receive my pro rata share based on ownership percentage. How much? Raj asked. I didn't want to answer, but they deserved to know. Approximately $380,000. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. I watched the number land, watched them calculate how much money I was walking away with while they faced unemployment. $380,000, Kim repeated slowly. You're getting $380,000 while some of us are getting 4 weeks of severance pay. It's not profit, I tried to explain. It's return of capital. I invested $250,000 of my own money when we started the company. I haven't taken a meaningful salary in 3 years. This is just getting back what I put in, plus a small return. A small return, Marcus laughed bitterly. Most of us are losing everything, and you call $130,000 in profit a small return. He was right. It sounded terrible. It was terrible. There was no way to spin it that didn't make me look like I was profiting from their suffering. Look, I said, my voice tired and defeated. I know you're angry. I know this isn't fair. I know you feel betrayed. But anger isn't going to change anything. TechFlow is going to start interviews next Monday. My advice, and I know you probably don't want to hear it from me, is to prepare. Update your resumes. Practice your interview answers. Do whatever you can to maximize your chances of being one of the people they keep. And if we're not? Jenny asked quietly. If we're one of the 20 or so people who get thrown away, what then? Then you file for unemployment, you start job hunting, and you do whatever you need to do to survive. That's the reality. I wish I had better answers, but I don't. The meeting ended shortly after that. People filed out in small groups, some still crying, some angry, some just numb. No one looked at me as they left. I stood at the front of the conference room, watching my team, former team, walk away, and felt like I was attending a funeral. The funeral of CloudBridge Solutions. The funeral of 3 years of work. The funeral of 43 careers. The funeral of trust and belief in the American dream that said, if you worked hard and built something valuable, you'd be rewarded for it. Raj was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and turned back to face me. You know what the worst part is? He said quietly. I actually believed you when you said we were building something that mattered. I believed you when you said CloudBridge was going to change the industry. I believed we were creating value, not just for investors and founders, but for everyone involved. We did create value, I said. For 3 years, we built something real. And then you sold it for parts the moment things got hard, he interrupted. That's not building something that matters, Alex. That's just capitalism. Extract value while you can, and when the market turns against you, cash out and let everyone else deal with the consequences. He left without waiting for a response. I stood alone in the conference room, his words echoing in my head. Was he right? Had I given up too easily? Or had I made the only rational decision given impossible circumstances? I didn't know anymore. I couldn't tell the difference between pragmatism and cowardice, between accepting reality and surrendering to it. My phone buzzed. An email from TechFlow's HR department with interview schedules for the employee assessments. I scanned through the list, seeing names and time slots. Monday through Friday next week, they'd be evaluating my team, deciding who was worthy of keeping and who would be discarded. Another email came in. This one from a reporter at TechCrunch. Hi Alex, heard about the CloudBridge acquisition. Working on a story about tech companies impacted by Trump's tariff. Would love to get your perspective on how the policy affected your business and what you think it means for the broader industry. Can you speak on the record? I stared at the email for a long time. What would I say? How would I explain that a single executive order signed at 11 p.m. on a Thursday had destroyed a $2.5 million business in 72 hours? How would I explain that 43 people were losing their jobs because of a trade policy they had no control over and no warning about? More importantly, would anyone care? Or would we just become another statistic, another casualty in an economic war that the people making the decisions would never have to personally experience? I didn't respond to the reporter. What was the point? The story would be the same whether I participated or not. Tech startup uses Chinese infrastructure. Trump imposes tariff. Company collapses. It was already happening to dozens of companies. We weren't special. We weren't unique. We were just another data point in someone's economic policy analysis. I spent the rest of the day in my office, working through the mechanical process of preparing for the acquisition closing. Compiling client contracts, organizing financial records, documenting our technology stack. It felt surreal, like I was cataloging the organs of a corpse for transplant. Around 4 p.m., David came to my office. He looked exhausted, aged 10 years in the last 2 days. The investors want to meet, he said. Tomorrow morning. They want to discuss the final terms and distribution of proceeds. What's to discuss? The deal is signed. They want to understand the exact breakdown. Who gets what, how much, when. I nodded. Another meeting, another funeral. This time for the investors who'd believed in CloudBridge enough to put $3 million into it, only to get back about $1.9 million after we paid off all our obligations. How are you holding up? David asked. I'm not, I said honestly. But it doesn't matter. We have 3 more days to get through, and then it's over. What will you do after? I hadn't thought that far ahead. What does someone do after their company dies? After they fail publicly, spectacularly, as a result of circumstances partially within their control and partially completely beyond it? I don't know, I said. Maybe take some time off. Maybe start something new, though I can't imagine anyone wanting to invest in me after this. This wasn't your fault, Alex. Wasn't it? I made the call to use Chinese infrastructure. I dismissed concerns about geopolitical risk. I built a business model that couldn't survive policy changes. Those were my decisions. David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You made rational business decisions based on the information available at the time. You optimized for cost and performance, which is what any good CEO would do. You couldn't have predicted Trump would impose a 100% tariff overnight with no warning or transition period. But I should have been prepared for the possibility. No one can be prepared for everything, Alex. Sometimes the market moves against you in ways you can't anticipate or defend against. That's not failure, that's just reality." I wanted to believe him, but when I looked at the faces of my employees that morning, Raj with his pregnant wife and new mortgage, Kim with her 3 kids in private school, Jenny with her recent engagement, I couldn't convince myself that just reality was an adequate explanation for destroying their lives. The next day, Friday, October 13th, I met with the investors. Marcus, Patricia, David Chen, and Rebecca sat around the conference table, reviewing the final financial breakdown that David, our CFO, had prepared. After paying off all obligations, settling contracts, and covering transition costs, we'll have approximately $1.87 million to distribute, David explained. Original investment was $3 million. That's a 37.7% loss. Could be worse, Rebecca said. Could be a total loss. Small comfort, Patricia muttered. Marcus was reading through the documentation. What's the timeline for the TechFlow employee interviews? They start Monday, I said. They've scheduled all 43 employees for assessments over the next 2 weeks. And then what? How long until people know if they're being kept or laid off? TechFlow said they'll make decisions by October 27th. Kept employees will transition immediately. Laid-off employees will receive their severance and be out by November 3rd. 3 weeks from today, Patricia said quietly. 3 weeks until most of your team is unemployed. The number hung in the air. 3 weeks. That's all that remained of CloudBridge Solutions. 3 weeks until everything we'd built was fully absorbed into TechFlow or discarded as unwanted. Have you heard from any of them? Marcus asked me. The employees? No. No one's speaking to me. They're all updating their resumes and looking for other jobs in case TechFlow doesn't keep them. Can you blame them? No. I'd be doing the same thing in their position. Rebecca leaned forward. Alex, I need to ask you something. And I want an honest answer. Do you think we made the right decision selling to TechFlow? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I think we made the only decision we could make given the circumstances, I said finally. Was it the right decision? I don't know. Ask me in a year when we can see how many people kept their jobs and whether TechFlow successfully integrated the acquisition. Ask me in 5 years when we have perspective on whether the tariff policy was temporary or permanent. Ask me in 10 years when we can evaluate the full impact of Trump's trade war on the tech industry. That's not an answer, Rebecca pressed. It's the only answer I have. We were in an impossible situation. We chose the path that seemed least bad. Whether it was actually least bad or just differently bad, I can't tell you. The meeting wrapped up shortly after. Investors signed the final paperwork, accepting their losses, acknowledging that sometimes even good investments fail through no fault of anyone involved. Except it was someone's fault. Trump's fault for imposing an unprecedented tariff overnight. My fault for not diversifying infrastructure providers. The system's fault for creating conditions where businesses could be destroyed in 72 hours by policy announcements. Everyone's fault and no one's fault at the same time. That afternoon, I sat in my office, soon to be someone else's office, and pulled up the news. The headlines were all variations on the same theme. Trump tariff devastates tech sector. Dozens of companies face bankruptcy. Tech startup. Bloodbath. How one policy change destroyed an industry. Collateral damage. The hidden cost of Trump's trade war. I clicked on the third article. It was a comprehensive analysis of companies affected by the tariff. CloudBridge wasn't mentioned specifically, but we fit the profile perfectly. Young tech companies that had optimized for cost and performance by using Chinese infrastructure, now facing existential crises as those cost advantages evaporated overnight. The article included interviews with several founders in similar situations. One woman described laying off her entire team of 30 people the day after the tariff was announced. A man talked about filing for bankruptcy after his largest client terminated their contract. A non-binary founder explained how 3 years of work had been destroyed in a single news cycle. We weren't alone. We weren't even unusual. We were just one of dozens, maybe hundreds, of companies caught in the crossfire of a trade war we had no part in starting and no ability to stop. The article ended with a quote from an economist at Harvard. The tariff will achieve its political goal of appearing tough on China, but the economic cost will be borne primarily by American companies and workers. The irony is that the policy designed to protect American interests will destroy American businesses. I closed my laptop. The analysis was correct, but it didn't help. Understanding why my company was dying didn't make it any less dead. My phone rang. It was Sarah. "Hey," she said softly. "How are you doing?" "I'm at the office, signing final paperwork, watching everything end." "Come home. There's nothing more you can do there today." She was right. There was nothing more I could do. The deal was signed. The employees were preparing for interviews. The investors had accepted their losses. All that remained was waiting for the official closing and watching TechFlow absorb the useful pieces of CloudBridge while discarding the rest. I drove home in a daze. It was 6:47 p.m. on October 13th, 2025. Exactly 72 hours since I'd first seen the Bloomberg headline about Trump's tariff. 72 hours from thriving $2.5 million business to failed acquisition. 72 hours from 43 employees to mass layoffs. 72 hours from entrepreneur with a vision to cautionary tale about the dangers of geopolitical risk. When I got home, Sarah was waiting with dinner she'd made. Comfort food, my favorite pasta dish. We ate in silence, and afterward, she asked me what I was thinking about. "I'm thinking about how fragile everything is," I said. 3 years of 16-hour days, $3 million in investment, 43 people's careers, all of it destroyed in 72 hours by a policy announcement I had no control over. We built something real, something valuable, and it didn't matter. One man signed one piece of paper and everything collapsed. What are you going to do now? I honestly don't know. Start over, I guess. That's what entrepreneurs do, right? Fail, learn, try again. Will you? Try again? I thought about it. Did I have the energy to build another company? Did I have the courage to risk everything again, knowing how quickly it could all disappear? Did I believe enough in the system to keep playing a game where the rules could change overnight without warning? I don't know, I said finally. Ask me in a few months when I've had time to process everything. We sat together on the couch, not talking, just existing in the wreckage of what had been my professional life. Outside, San Francisco was going about its business, completely unaware that another startup had just joined the ever-growing list of casualties in an economic war that no one was winning. Monday came. The TechFlow interview started. I wasn't part of the process. They didn't want me influencing their decisions. So I sat in my office, watching my former employees go one by one into the conference room to be evaluated, judged, sorted into keep or discard piles. By October 27th, as promised, TechFlow announced their decisions. 22 employees received job offers. 21 were laid off. Raj wasn't kept. Neither was Kim. Neither was Marcus from operations. Jenny from marketing got an offer. So did about half the engineering team. The top performers, just like I'd predicted. The laid-off employees would work through November 3rd and then be gone. 2 weeks of severance for most of them. 3 months of continued health insurance. And then nothing. I wrote personal reference letters for everyone who was laid off. I made introductions to contacts at other companies. I did what I could, knowing it would never be enough. On November 3rd, 2025, I stood in the CloudBridge office, now TechFlow's San Francisco satellite office, and watched the final group of laid-off employees pack up their desks. Raj walked past me without speaking, carrying a box of his belongings, his face hard and closed. Kim stopped to shake my hand. "I don't forgive you," she said quietly. "But I understand you were in an impossible situation. For what it's worth, I hope you figure out what comes next." By 6 p.m., the office was empty of everyone who'd been laid off. The kept employees, now TechFlow employees, would return Monday. But it wouldn't be CloudBridge anymore. It would be something else, wearing our name like a costume. I drove home for the last time as CEO of CloudBridge Solutions. The title was meaningless now. The company existed only as a subsidiary of TechFlow, a footnote in someone else's corporate structure. Sarah asked me how I was feeling. "Empty," I said. "Angry. Sad. Relieved it's finally over. All of it at once." "What did you learn from this?" I thought about her question for a long time. "I learned that you can do everything right and still fail," I said finally. "You can build a good product, create value for clients, treat employees fairly, make rational business decisions, and still lose everything because of factors beyond your control." I learned that the system doesn't protect people who work hard and play by the rules. I learned that political decisions get made by people who never have to live with the consequences. That's dark. It's true. What are you going to do with that knowledge? I don't know yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe I'll start another company and try to build something that can't be destroyed by a single policy change. Maybe I'll get out of tech entirely. Maybe I'll become one of those bitter failed founders who warns everyone about the dangers of entrepreneurship. You're not a failure, Alex. Tell that to the 21 people who lost their jobs. Tell that to the investors who lost $1 million. Tell that to my wife who spent 3 years barely seeing her husband because he was too busy building a company that collapsed in 72 hours. We didn't talk more that night. There wasn't anything left to say. Trump's tariff stayed in place. The tech industry adjusted. Some companies survived by switching to American infrastructure at massive cost. Others failed like CloudBridge, sold for parts, or simply went bankrupt. The policy achieved its political goal of looking tough on China. The cost was borne by people like Raj, with his pregnant wife and new mortgage. People like Kim, scrambling to pay private school tuition for 3 kids. People like me, watching 3 years of work dissolve because someone decided that scoring political points was worth destroying businesses. No one in power cared. No one in Congress fought for us. No one in the administration acknowledged the collateral damage. We were just statistics, data points in an economic report, casualties that didn't matter because we weren't politically useful. CloudBridge Solutions died on November 3rd, 2025. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Not with a heroic last stand, but with quiet resignation. 24 days from thriving company to corporate footnote. And somewhere in Washington, D.C., in offices far removed from the consequences of their decisions, politicians congratulated themselves on getting tough with China, completely unaware of, or indifferent to, the wreckage they'd created. That's the real story. Not just about CloudBridge, but about an economic system where those who make the rules never have to live by them, and those who play by the rules discover too late that the game was rigged from the start.